The world of technology often moves with the roar of 1,000 engines, but sometimes the most profound shifts occur in absolute deafening silence. Google just initiated a strategic move that could dismantle the billion-dollar AI subscription industry overnight, and yet there were no flashing neon signs or celebratory parades to mark the occasion. It was a calculated, quiet strike, a digital earthquake whose tremors are currently rewriting the fundamental rules of the entire internet. For years, we have been conditioned to believe that advanced intelligence was a luxury, a premium service tucked safely behind a $20 a month paywall. We accepted the tax on intelligence as an inevitable reality of the modern era, a toll we had to pay to access the cutting edge of human progress. But that reality is beginning to crumble before our very eyes, faster than anyone anticipated. While the mainstream media remains fixated on the latest celebrity scandals or temporary market fluctuations, a different kind of war is being fought within the lines of code that run our world. This release didn't arrive with the fanfare of a new flagship smartphone. Instead, it arrived as a quiet gift to those who actually build the future. Developers, the architects of our digital landscape, are waking up to find that the heavy gates to the kingdom have been left wide open. The contrast is jarring and impossible to ignore. On one side, you have corporate giants guarding their secret formulas like nuclear launch codes, demanding recurring fees for every single interaction. On the other, you have a trillion-dollar company essentially handing out its most valuable secrets for free, inviting anyone with a keyboard and a vision to take them. It forces us to confront a dramatic question. Why would a company as profit-driven as Google do such a thing? Why would the chess master of the global tech world sacrifice its potential subscription revenue? To understand this, we have to look far past the surface level of open source and see Gemma 4 for what it truly is, a strategic weapon. This is not just a minor update or a slightly improved version of a previous model. It is a declaration of war against the status quo, a tactical maneuver designed to change the nature of how we interact with technology. Google has realized that the real value lies not in the gate, but in the garden itself. This is the beginning of a fundamental conflict between two opposing ideologies. On one side stands closed AI, but the walled gardens where intelligence is a rented utility, a product you never truly own. This is the world of the big tech paywalls, where your access to the most advanced tools is contingent on a monthly credit card transaction. On the other side is the promise of the total liberation of code. Gemma 4 represents the bridge between these two worlds, a tool that is lean, fast, and multimodal, designed to live on your hardware rather than being trapped in a distant corporate cloud. It is an instrument of freedom in an era defined by digital enclosure. Before we dive deeper into the technical marvels of this new entity, we must pause to consider the weight of this moment. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. This reflection is necessary because Gemma 4 is not a generic tool. It is a prodigy student born from a master teacher known as Gemini. Google has spent years and billions of dollars training massive models, only to distill that wisdom into a version that is easily accessible to everyone. It is a scorched earth policy disguised as a charitable act. The mystery deepens when you realize that by giving away the brain, Google is playing an entirely different game. The era of paying for basic intelligence is officially under threat, and the walls of the subscription prison are finally starting to come down. To understand the weight of Gemma 4's arrival, we must first look at the landscape we've been forced to inhabit over the last few years. It is a world where human ingenuity is increasingly tethered to a digital umbilical cord, one that requires a constant infusion of capital to remain active. We find ourselves living in the era of the rented mind. Whether it is ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini Pro, the most advanced versions of these intelligences are not something you own. They are services you lease, month by grueling month. This has created a modern phenomenon known as the tax on intelligence. It is an invisible barrier that separates those who can afford to be at the cutting edge from those who are left behind in the analog dust. For a freelance developer in a bustling tech hub, $20 might seem like the price of a few cups of coffee. But for a dreamer in a developing nation or a bootstrapped startup operating on a razor-thin margin, that recurring cost is a chain. These innovators are trapped in a cycle where every breakthrough they achieve is taxed by the very platforms that enable it. The margins of their potential success are slowly eroded by API costs and seat licenses, creating a parasitic relationship where the tool provider grows wealthier as the creator struggles to scale. This is the prison of subscriptions, a beautifully designed cage of convenience that masks a deep systemic dependency. The dream of the internet was once the democratization of information, but the first era of generative AI threatened to turn it into a feudal system where a few corporate lords owned the intellectual means of production. However, cracks began to form in this structure. The industry reached a peculiar saturation point, a plateau where the sheer size of these digital titans started to become their greatest liability. We were told that bigger was always better, that hundreds of billions of parameters were the only way to achieve true reasoning, but the returns began to diminish. The world didn't always need a massive, energy-hungry superintelligence to write a clean block of code or summarize a document. The cost of running these giants remained astronomical, and the users were the ones footing the bill. A sense of fatigue began to settle over the developer community. They were tired of being renters, tired of the latency, and tired of the lack of privacy that comes when every thought must be transmitted to a distant server for processing. While the giants were busy measuring their success by the height of their paywalls, a different kind of evolution was taking place in the shadows of Google's research facilities. While the public's attention was captured by the massive master models, a leaner, more lethal force was being bred in the labs. Google, the chess master, was observing the field, recognizing that the moat surrounding the subscription models was not built of superior technology, but of sheer brute force and high entry costs. They saw the vulnerability in the business models of their rivals. If intelligence could be made small, if it could be made local, then the very foundation of the closed AI empire would turn to sand. This was the inciting incident for a new kind of rebellion. The realization started to spread that the moat was actually a mirage. The high price of entry was no longer a reflection of value, but a desperate attempt to maintain control over a commodity that was rapidly becoming abundant. The walls of the subscription prison are not just made of money. They are made of the belief that we cannot survive without the cloud. But as the capabilities of hardware on our desks and in our pockets began to catch up with the requirements of these distilled models, that belief started to shatter. The era of the giant models is facing its first real existential crisis. We are witnessing the beginning of a great migration, where the intelligence moves from the high-security vaults of big tech and back into the hands of the individual. The moat is drying up, and the gates are beginning to rust. The transition from a rented utility to a personal right is no longer a futuristic dream. It is the immediate reality being forged by this quiet revolution. The power dynamic is shifting, and for the first time in the history of AI, the renter is preparing to become the owner. Out of the strategic silence of Google's laboratories, the world finally witnessed the unveiling of a new kind of entity. They called it Gemma 4. It was not another lumbering giant or a digital behemoth requiring the power of a small city to operate. Instead, Gemma 4 was the prodigy student, a lean and athletic intelligence born from the staggering complexity of its master teacher Gemini. To understand Gemma 4 is to understand the art of distillation, the process of taking an ocean of knowledge and condensing it into a single potent drop that retains the power of the whole. This was not a subtraction of capability, but a massive refinement. Google took the wisdom of its most expensive models and taught a smaller, more agile student how to replicate that wisdom without the unnecessary bulk of the past. Think of the relationship between Gemini and Gemma 4 as that of a master artisan and a brilliant apprentice. The master possesses a library of 1,000,000 volumes, but the apprentice has been taught to carry the core truths of every single book in a single pocketbook. This teacher versus student training methodology, technically known as knowledge distillation, represents a paradigm shift in how AI is constructed. In the past, we believed that to make an AI smarter, we simply had to make it larger. We fed it more data and billions of extra parameters. But Gemma 4 proves that intelligence is about the density of connections rather than raw size. By using Gemini to oversee the training of Gemma 4, Google's engineers pruned away the noise, leaving behind a crystalline structure of pure, efficient reasoning that rivals the titans. This compressed intelligence is the magic behind the curtain. Imagine fitting the entire contents of a grand library into a device that fits in the palm of your hand without losing a single nuance. That is the reality of Gemma 4. It allows for an efficiency previously thought impossible in the realm of advanced computing. Because the model is so lean, It doesn't need to live in a temperature-controlled data center or be accessed via a satellite link. It is designed to be downloaded, owned, and executed on the very hardware you use to write your emails or manage your daily business. This is the moment when the cloud finally begins to feel like an unnecessary middleman. When the processing happens within the silicon of your own device, the tether to the corporate mothership is severed. You are the sovereign ruler of your tools. The evolution of the student didn't stop at mere logic. The true breakthrough of Gemma 4 lies in its eyes. In the previous era, small models were blind, capable only of processing strings of text. If you wanted an AI to see an image or analyze a video, you had to call upon the heavy-duty models behind the corporate paywalls. Gemma 4 changes that narrative entirely. It is natively multimodal, meaning it was built from the ground up to perceive and think across different mediums simultaneously. It doesn't just read a photo's caption, it understands the emotional weight of the scene and the geometry of the architecture. It treats visual data with the same fluency it applies to a line of code. This shift ensures the student is capable of understanding the physical world. This shift from reading to seeing and thinking transforms Gemma 4 into a functional tool that lives in the real world. It is no longer a restricted demo or a simple chatbot. It is software that resides on your local hardware. When you run Gemma 4 on your laptop, the intelligence is truly yours, free from the constraints of internet speed or usage limits. There is no latency. There is no risk of a corporate server logging your private queries to sell to advertisers. There is only the immediate, crisp response of a model tailored to your specific environment. The narrative of AI is being rewritten. For years, we were told the big brain would always live in the distant corporate cloud, but Gemma 4 brings that brain directly into your pocket. Gemma 4 is a strategic weapon of accessibility. By placing this level of sophisticated intelligence into the hands of developers, Google has effectively bypassed the gatekeepers. The student no longer needs the master's classroom to function. It is ready to go out into the world and prove its worth in the wild. But how can something so small challenge the giants that cost millions to run? How can a student, no matter how gifted, compete with the brute force processing power of the massive titans? The industry is watching with bated breath, wondering if this is a gift or a move in a dangerous game. The student is walking among us, but the true test of strength is just beginning. This seismic shift in the balance of power represents a fundamental transformation in the way humanity will access and utilize synthetic intelligence from this day forward. When you place Gemma 4 side by side with the towering, expensive models that have dominated the market, a startling reality emerges. For years, the industry relied on the assumption that a massive price tag indicated superior capability. We believed that if we weren't paying $20 a month, we were settling for a second-rate mind. But Gemma 4 has shattered that illusion. The performance gap, once a vast canyon separating elite cloud models from local alternatives, has shrunk to a mere hairline fracture. For the vast majority of tasks, writing code, summarizing documents, or brainstorming strategies, Gemma 4 doesn't just keep up, it often outpaces its paid rivals. Its efficiency means it achieves with a fraction of the weight what the heavy titans require an entire server farm to process. The true edge of this prodigy student lies in its total independence. While subscription models are tethered to the internet, Gemma 4 lives and breathes within your local hardware. This local execution is the ultimate game changer for privacy and speed. When the model resides on your own silicon, no data travels across the ocean to a corporate database. Your sensitive ideas and proprietary code stay in your possession. There is no waiting for a distant server during peak hours, and no network error to interrupt your flow. The latency is virtually zero. It is the difference between waiting for a letter in the mail and having a real-time conversation. This independence ensures that the user is no longer a guest in someone else's digital house, but the master of their own. Then there is the tax on intelligence. Developers have lived under the thumb of pay-per-token pricing, where every query was a microtransaction draining the lifeblood of innovation. Gemma 4 introduces a zero-cost reality. By moving from renting intelligence to owning it, the financial barriers evaporate. You download the model once, and it serves you for a lifetime at no additional charge. This is a total liberation of resources. Small startups and developing nations, previously priced out of the AI revolution, now have access to the same intellectual firepower as a Silicon Valley giant. The playing field isn't just being leveled, it is being completely redesigned to favor the individual over the institution, turning a luxury service into a common utility. Under the hood, the architecture of Gemma 4 is a marvel, tuned to outperform rivals like Llama in high-value reasoning. While other open source models struggle with complex logic, Gemma 4 handles it with surgical precision. This is the Linux moment for AI. Just as the open source operating system rose to power the world's servers by being free and customizable, Gemma 4 is the bedrock upon which the future is built. It is no longer the free alternative for those who can't afford the best. It is becoming the standard because it is the most practical choice. It represents a shift from centralized authority to distributed empowerment, where the tools of creation are finally handed back to the creators, regardless of their budget. The most dangerous revelation for the established order isn't that Gemma 4 is better than the paid giants in every metric. It doesn't have to be. The secret Google has unleashed is that Gemma 4 is good enough. In business, good enough is a lethal force when it costs zero. When a free local model performs 95% of a task, as well as a model that costs thousands to scale, the logic for the subscription model collapses. The walls of the subscription prison have been breached. People are realizing that paying for a bloated model to do a job a lean student can do on a phone is an absurdity. This shift isn't just about saving money, it's about the democratization of potential. When the barrier to entry falls to zero, the only remaining limit is human imagination. The once impenetrable fortress of the tech elite is now open to everyone. The age of renting your brain is ending, and the era of autonomous intelligence has arrived. As the dust settles on the initial shock of Gemma 4's performance, a chilling question echoes through Silicon Valley boardrooms. Why would Google, a profit-driven titan, choose to sabotage the very market it helped create? To the casual observer, releasing a model this powerful for free looks like an act of corporate altruism or a desperate move to catch up. But to those who understand the cold logic of the chess master, this is not a gift. It is a gambit. Google is not interested in winning the race for the most expensive subscription service. They are burning the ground on which that race is being run. This is the strategy of commoditization, a ruthless maneuver designed to turn a competitor's primary product into a common, worthless utility. In the high-stakes game of tech dominance, there is an old rule. If you want to win, you make your competitor's product a commodity. By making high-level intelligence free and accessible through Gemma 4, Google is effectively removing the floor from the AI subscription market. If intelligence is everywhere, it loses its transactional value. When the brain becomes a free right, the $20 a month paywalls of OpenAI and Microsoft look like relics. Google knows that if it can't be the only one selling the air, it might as well make the air free so that no one else can sell it either. This is the scorched earth policy. They are destroying the monetization of the model itself to force the battle onto a terrain where Google holds the high ground. This terrain is the infrastructure of the future. Google isn't playing the model game, they are playing the ecosystem game. By giving away the brain, they ensure that every developer and startup builds their world on Google's architecture. When a developer downloads Gemma 4, they are entering an environment optimized for Google Cloud and specialized chips. The model is the bait, and the hook is the massive backend required to scale these innovations. If you control the roads, you don't need to charge for the cars. You simply wait for people to realize they can't go anywhere without your pavement. This move shifts the profit center from software to hardware in the cloud, where Google's margins are defended by physical servers. The climax of this strategy is a direct attack on the business models of its chief rivals. For companies like OpenAI, the subscription model is the lifeblood funding their massive compute costs. By releasing Gemma 4, Google has poisoned the well. They have told the world that the intelligence they were once forced to rent can now be owned. This creates a crisis of value. When consumers can get 95% of the capability locally without a credit card, the justification for a recurring fee vanishes. It forces the competition into a defensive crouch, making them choose between lowering prices or trying to prove a superiority that is increasingly difficult to demonstrate. The strategic truth is that Google is commoditizing the core of the AI revolution. They are ensuring intelligence is no longer a premium service, but a baseline expectation. This is the ultimate check in a long game. By giving away the brain, Google ensures they remain the central nervous system of the digital world. They aren't just disrupting a market, they are redefining it. This isn't a philanthropic gesture, it is a strike to ensure no one else can build a wall around what Google wants to be free. Gemma 4 was sent to dismantle the gates and ensure the only way forward is through Google's perfected architecture. As the industry reels, the walls are falling because the architect decided they were no longer profitable. This move signals a shift in how value is perceived. The subscription model is bleeding, and Google is holding the knife while offering a free alternative. But as the tax on intelligence fades, a new question emerges. If the brain is free, what is the true cost of the body it inhabits? The world is finding that a gift from a titan often comes with invisible strings. This is the master's gambit, and the board has never looked more dangerous for those who thought they could own the mind of the machine. The chains of the subscription model did not just represent a financial burden, they represented a fundamental lack of agency for those building the future. For years, the developer was a mere renter in the digital estates of Silicon Valley, tethered to the whims of remote servers and corporate policy. With the release of Gemma 4, that parasitic relationship has been permanently severed, replaced by an era of ownership and creative freedom. Developers are no longer waking up in a cold sweat, fearing that a sudden change in an API's pricing structure has decimated their startup's margins overnight. They no longer fear that a model update has broken the crafted logic of their software. By running Gemma 4 locally on their own hardware, the innovator finally holds the keys to their own kingdom. This shift has triggered an explosive renaissance of specialized applications that were previously deemed impossible. We are witnessing the rise of boutique AI, where these lean, fast models are fine-tuned for incredibly high-value tasks. From optimizing crop yields to managing complex logistics, the power is no longer concentrated in a few glass towers. It is distributed across millions of hard drives, empowering a generation of creators who were once locked out of the revolution. For high-stakes industries like healthcare, law, and finance, the arrival of Gemma 4 marks the birth of a privacy-first gold standard that changes the nature of institutional trust. In the past, the tax on intelligence was paid in monthly dollars and the exchange of sensitive, often sacred data. A hospital wanting to leverage the power of a large language model for diagnosis often faced a terrifying ethical dilemma: sacrifice patient privacy by sending data to a third-party cloud or miss out on the cutting edge of technology. Gemma 4 has resolved this tension by allowing high-level intelligence to exist entirely behind a local firewall. Now, a surgeon can consult a model trained on private medical records without a single byte of information ever leaving the hospital's secure network. Lawyers can parse through thousands of pages of discovery with the help of a sophisticated reasoning engine that is disconnected from the internet and entirely untraceable. This is the transformation of AI from a risky external consultant into a trusted internal partner. It is the definitive end of the forced trade-off between progress and security. But the most profound and lasting impact of Gemma 4 is felt by the individual, the billions who were unaware that a silent war for their digital mind was being fought. We are entering a future where the smartphone in your pocket is no longer just a passive window into the centralized worlds of Google or Microsoft, but is instead an active, private brain. This intelligent core is no longer an informant. It does not report your queries or private dilemmas back to a distant corporate server to be analyzed for advertisement targeting. It does not require a constant, high-speed internet connection to help you think, write, or solve complex problems in real time. It is a personal assistant that lives with you, grows with your needs, and keeps your digital secrets with fidelity. The era where your most private thoughts were a commodity to be harvested by the highest bidder is being directly challenged by a model that works for you alone. The digital frontier is moving inward, creating a sanctuary of private intelligence in an increasingly monitored world. Users are discovering they no longer have to pay for the privilege of being watched. As we look back at the journey from the prison of subscriptions to this wide-open frontier, the technological landscape is unrecognizable. The walls of the paywalls are crumbling into dust, and the tax on intelligence is being repealed by the force of open-source accessibility. Google's master gambit, though rooted in the cold logic of ecosystem dominance, has inadvertently set a fire of liberation that cannot be contained. By commoditizing the mind of the machine, they have forced the entire industry to evolve or perish. The old world of renting basic intelligence for $20 a month is fading into a memory of a more primitive, restrictive time. The mystery of why a giant would give away its secrets is solved by the world they have built, a world where infrastructure is the only thing left to sell because intelligence has become as free as the air. We are no longer standing at the gates, waiting for corporate permission to innovate. The era of paying for intelligence is ending. The era of using it to its full potential has just begun. Intelligence used to be a luxury. Google just made it a right.